What's up, everybody? Trey Griggs here, Beta Consulting Group, and we are at episode 57 of Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership. Do me a favor, if you would, jump over to our website, betaconsultinggroup.com. Check it out. See how we can help you build your brand, your messaging, your content creation, your strategies, some of your sales outcomes, and give us a little feedback. Because we're going to be talking about websites today with our guests. I can't wait to talk about that. But we'd love to have you come over and check out what we got going on, because we're going to be working on that and just continually improving it. So we want to hear your feedback on that. Also, if you would, check out my friends over at TAFS.com. These are the good guys in freight fractoring. They're helping carriers understand, how they can run their business better, more efficiently, what they need from a financial perspective. And they've got a bunch of resources, fuel discounts, tire discounts, all kinds of good things. And they really want to educate their carriers and help them grow, because that's how they're going to grow. So check them out at TAFS.com. If you're a freight broker, you can become a referral partner to make sure that your carriers have all the resources that they need to stay on the road and keep moving your freight. And again, tell them Trey sent you. Also, there's going to be a link in the comments today for this broadcast where you can click on that directly to my landing page with TAFS.com. That'd be great if you could click on that and check that out. Well, listen, everybody, we've had a phenomenal week of shows coming to you live here from Kona, Hawaii. It's early morning. You can see the sun's just now coming up. We've had a great week of shows so far. And I'm telling you what, yesterday's show with Joshua Harrison, absolute fire. That guy's an endurance athlete. He's doing a 100-mile run for charity, raising money for the Ronald McDonald House. If you didn't catch that episode yesterday, make sure you check that out. Monday's episode with Beth Carroll from Prosperio Group was absolutely awesome. You're going to love today's guest. You know her, you love her. We'll talk more with Blythe here in just a little bit. Tomorrow, my good friend Curtis Schreiber, who has been part of the, I think it's the YC contributor. I got to understand that program a little bit better. We're going to talk to him tomorrow. He's the CEO and co-founder of Exo Freight out of Detroit, Michigan, and just a crazy cool story about how he went from Parade, a technology company, now to running a freight brokerage. And then my good friend Sarah Barnes-Humphrey on Friday, founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain, absolutely phenomenal network, cool content, what she's doing, coming out of Toronto, Canada. So we're going to talk to her on Friday. So come back every day, 10:30 a.m. Central, for another episode of Standing Out. Very excited about that. Okay, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to get our guest on today, have a great conversation. You guys know her, you love her. She is the host of Cyberly at FreightWaves and the founder of Digital Dispatch, my good friend Blythe Brumleve. Blythe, what's up? How are you?
Thank you for having me. That's awesome. You have Sarah on the show coming up. She's one of,
awesome.
When I first got into like logistics and supply chain more than a decade ago, she was one of the first women that I followed on social media. So she's been in this podcast game for a while.
She's an incredible podcaster. She's a great entrepreneur. She's a good friend, great ideas. I can't wait to have her on the show. It's going to be awesome. But let's talk about you today. First of all, you were my original guest on Standing Out 56 episodes ago, and now we're back. It's crazy. I know we've made 57 episodes, which is awesome. But what's been going on? What's been happening in your world in the last 2 to 3 months?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I keep running towards the elusive like break time, but I keep adding more work to it. So I don't know what a break actually looks like, but we're coming up on summer weather here in Florida. People are starting to do more things outside, having more beach trips, things like that. So it's a good reminder to step away, because stepping away from so much work and piling things on your plate can actually help you accomplish so much more.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I know that sounds a little bit hypocritical because I am technically on vacation, but I'm still podcasting. But as they say, the show must go on. But when this show is over, I turn it off, and it's been really nice. I've been playing golf. Yesterday, we went to Pearl Harbor with the family. Kids got to see that history and just a lot of fun stuff. So definitely need to turn it off. That's when I become most creative. I don't know if you found that to be true, but when I turn it off, usually like 3 or 4 days into vacation, I get all these really cool ideas that I probably never would have thought of if I was just going. So you're absolutely right. It's great to take
100%.
Yeah. And now we're talking about summer coming up really soon this summer in June in Orlando, in your home state, is the TMSA Level Up Conference, the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association Level Up Conference. You're going to be there. You're going to be speaking. Our good friend Jennifer Carpus-Romaine, the executive director, she's doing a phenomenal job taking over this organization.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch because I originally found out about the TMSA I've kind of known about it for a while, but started to become more involved with it about a year ago. Patrick McFarland, he works over at ITS Logistics. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting that company name right, I hope I am.
I think you are,
But
yeah.
interviewed him, and he's a board member for the TMSA. So he was the one that was really, sort of pushed me into sort of taking on a greater role within the TMSA because I felt, at the time that, so many of us had joined social media and were being very active in connecting with folks through LinkedIn, through Twitter, through all of these different social media platforms. And it took a while, I think, for me to start seeing or start connecting with other TMSA, members and board members and things like that are active on social media. So since, making those connections, it's really been incredible to see what other folks are doing from within the trenches. And when I say within the trenches, I mean the marketing assistants, the CMOs, the marketing managers at all of these transportation and logistics companies all over the country. And so that's what's really that's what initially drew me in to joining the TMSA and then becoming a board member for them. And then, learning through all of their different training and webinars and things like that, you don't have to feel so alone out here
No doubt.
working in marketing and sales, because that's what it really boils down to. I think, especially for marketers in this industry, we are very lucky to have one position in the entire company that's dedicated to marketing. But then on the flip side, you're very lucky if you have, more than one person, if you have a team. And so being able to network with other folks that are exactly in your position, where it's fostering community over competition, that's where I feel like just the true value really lies with the TMSA. And then, to piggyback off of that, the conference coming up, this will be my first TMSA conference. So it's the first opportunity. Typically at, conferences that I've been going to over the last year, I'm sort of scoping out the attendee list and seeing who's involved with marketing. But this one, everybody is going to be
That's
involved in
right.
marketing sales. So I cannot wait to be able to see the conversations and hopefully take part in the conversations that are going to be happening from leaders throughout, the entire United States.
Especially in our industry of transportation, it seems like marketing is one of those areas where it doesn't get a lot of attention. And like you said, it's a very lonely position. I think I saw that the average number of marketing professionals for transportation companies is less than one full-time person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a lot of people who are a part of marketing. And most of the time, marketing people are just there to set up the trade show for everybody else. This one's actually for them. This show
Right.
is for them. It's for professionals just like them. And I've known about TMSA for quite a while, being in the space for a while, but never really got involved. Once I met
Same.
Jennifer, I was like, man, I got to be a part of this. So I joined. Very excited to be emceeing the event. You're going to be speaking at the event. Our good friend Chris Jolly is going to be speaking at the event. Holly Laboda, Christy Knichel. There's just so many good speakers and such a great list of attendees. I cannot wait to get down there. It's June 5 through 7. And if you haven't signed up for it yet, make sure you do. Go to events.tmsatoday.org and sign up today. It's going to be phenomenal. It's at the Gaylord Palms,
Yes.
I believe, right?
It's so the Gaylord is so nice. Like I love Orlando because I'm a Disney fanatic, theme park fanatic. So I'm making sort of like a double trip out of it. I'm going to Disney first and
Of
then,
course, why not?
hitting out.
You should.
You have
That's
to.
right.
It's the 50th anniversary. But then being able to stay at the Gaylord is, even if you have never been to Orlando or you're not a theme park person, the Gaylord in and of itself is a vacation spot because everything is already there. There's a water park. The grounds are beautiful. It's honestly, it's one of the nicest resorts that you will ever visit in your life. Like people who don't stay there, they go to visit there. Like that's how nice it is.
That's incredible. I know. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to have a little bit of fun with the emceeing part of it. I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but what are you going to be talking about at TMSA?
Well, it's kind of exactly what we're doing here, like podcasting 101. I think that is sort of the thing that's been overlooked the most in this industry, but it's also caught on fairly quickly over the last 2 years. That kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but we now have like more than 60 different logistics and supply chain podcasts throughout the industry, and it's incredible to think about it from a numbers perspective, where I could count on one hand, and I didn't need all the fingers in order to know how many different logistics logistics and supply chain shows were out there. But now that it's becoming more prevalent, now folks are wondering, well, how do I do this? How do I make it so that's beneficial to my company? So we're going to be exploring a couple different avenues to make podcasting. You don't have to technically do a show like what we're doing, or what I do on Cyberly or anything like that. You can use podcasting in a variety of different ways, where you can use it for recruiting, onboarding, training, using it for all of your different, materials, customer research. So I'm going to be breaking down the different ROIs of podcasting and trying to tie it back to some kind of benefit where you can take that one person marketer and you can help them create a set of training materials or a set of onboarding materials that you can add up to your website, that you can create these different programs for these different use cases, where it doesn't necessarily have to be trying to find a host that's really good within the company, because that's really challenging. And then you also can record it in different strategic ways, where you, as a marketer, as somebody that's running a business, you might run into situations where the business is going to take priority and the podcast is going to be put on the back burner. So creating different systems and processes to put in place so that you can tackle a podcast and it can be worth your while, but defining what that is, what that worth your while and what that ROI is, and then reverse engineering it to where you're not overcomplicating the situation and you're not making it into a situation where it's like the fear of perfection, where you have to have everything just pinpoint perfect in order to launch, because if you're waiting for that, you have waited too long.
Never going to happen. That's right. Well, I'm a podcaster and I can't wait to hear this talk that you're going to do. So thank you for doing that. Good morning, Scott. Good to hear you, man. He's got some ATG awesome marketing reps as well. Make sure they make it to TMSA, Scott. Make sure they sign up and get out there. Lauren, Morgan, Taylor, come join us. That's for sure. No, you're right. Like I once heard this and it made a lot of sense to me once I heard it. 90% in the market is better than 100% not in the market. So if you're waiting for perfection to start something, it's never going to happen. There's never the right time. You're never going to be ready. You have to do it. You have to figure out what, there's a method to the madness, which I know you're going to talk about. Like, how do you think about your topic? How do you think about your audience? How do you think about frequency and some of these different aspects of podcasting? But the truth is, once you have that down, you just have to take the next step and get started. And that's the hardest part for a lot of people, is just getting started.
Yeah, because I can remember back to the time where I was first starting to appear on radio and had my a radio show. I hate when I would hear a recording of it. I could listen to everybody else talk just fine, but when I would hear my own voice, I would immediately shut the radio off. And it took me so long to be able to review my own tape, to review how I could improve. And I still, like, to this day, I get nervous before every show, but that just means that I care. And then I will go back and I'll watch what I can improve on and how I can do things or say things a little bit better. I'm my own worst critic. And I know that a lot of people probably feel the same way about hearing their own voice. And, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. And, oh, I said, too many times, or filler words. And there's tools out there to help you alleviate that, where you don't necessarily sound like you're saying every other word. And there's tools out there to help you with the entire journey, but you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You want to get incrementally better. But if you're shooting for perfection, you're never going to reach it.
That's right. And it's interesting how, you never sound or look like you think you sound or look. It's never that way, whether you're singing, whether you're talking, whatever it is, it just never works out. From a golf perspective, I know that when I look at my golf swing, I'm like, it didn't feel that way, but that's just the way life is. So getting comfortable with that is, I think, really important, because you can learn a lot and you can continue to grow if you're not too critical on yourself. Like, I think it's really great for salespeople, for example, to listen to some of their sales calls and go, well, why did I say that? Or it seems like I have this filler word, or I could have said something differently when they said that, but I wasn't quite ready. So I think there's a place for it, but you're right. Like, you're never going to reach perfection, but I think you always should strive for it. It's almost like you're never going to be completely excellent, but you should strive for excellence, in that
Absolutely.
way. So, there's a balance there for sure. But I've come to enjoy listening to myself. It sounds weird. That sounds weird when I just said that. I've come to enjoy listening to myself just because it allows me to think through every word that I'm saying and just kind of clean it up a little bit as much as possible while still being authentic. I think
it's very comparable to sports, because it's one of those things where you want to watch first you want to eat your own dog food, and then from a literal, not a literal sense, but you want to eat your own dog food, but then you also want to watch your own tape and see how you can get better, because no one is going to do that for you unless you're blessed to work with, maybe a production team or somebody else to tell you, like, hey, I think it was a couple of weeks ago that the FreightWaves team was telling me the frame rate on your camera is not good. you need to fix it. The camera is too high or too low, or, just,
Right.
rephrase what you're thinking here. You're talking too long on this topic. And I love that because it's very challenging to get that feedback when you're a one person creator. And anytime you can have feedback from someone else is fantastic. But a lot of times you're going to have to rely on yourself to come up with the topics, to find the guests, to create that content, to distribute that content, and then get better at every step of that process. It's probably going to be you, but there are ways to tackle it without it feeling like it's super overwhelming.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the greatest athletes in the world and what they do to get better. I mean, Tom
Mhm.
Brady has a throwing coach. How is that even possible? He's like one of the
Mhm.
greatest quarterbacks of all time. And these guys watch their film because they want to say, okay, my foot position was wrong when I was going for that block, and that's why the guy got around me, or whatever it might be. They're constantly trying to get better, but to do that, they have to watch what they've been doing and evaluate themselves. I often think this, and I heard this said, if you're not willing to be evaluated, then you don't really want to be great. Like the great ones want to be evaluated. They want to be critiqued. They want to find little mistakes where they can grow and get better every day. And that can be true for podcasting. That can be true for marketing professionals. That can be true for anybody in whatever you're doing. So I love the fact that you're going to talk about that.
For
It's
sure. I
awesome.
mean, it's the end goal for everybody, and you're not going to be a master at it at first. And I think that that's probably the biggest takeaway that I want folks to have whenever they hear like a podcasting 101 is define what the end goal is, and then reverse engineer it. And then that way, once you reverse engineer it and figure out those processes and steps, then you can find those ways to get better. But the only way you get better is by trying and doing, maybe a batch recording. Maybe you spend a Sunday and you record 6 interviews on that Sunday, or you record 6 parts of your training materials or your onboarding materials on that one day. And then you will do it that first one that you record is probably going to take a while, but by the third and the fourth one, you're going to be in a
Got it
really
down.
good groove. And then you can go back, you can watch the tape, you can watch your own tape, and then you can do better the next time. So it's not completely overwhelming, and you can attack it in a framework and a process that you can continuously improve.
Yeah, just being patiently ambitious. Like everybody
Mhm.
wants to be great tomorrow, and that's perfect. That's the ambition side of it. But having just a little bit of patience with yourself and just continually kind of working through it and getting better and better, I think that's really important. All right, hey, listen, I want to transition real quick because one of the things I want to talk to you about, which I think that you're one of the best at in our industry, and maybe who knows, maybe in the nation, I don't know, but you're really good
I like
at
it.
websites. I love hearing you talk about what you're doing from a website perspective. And so I want to dig into that just a little bit and talk about that. When you think about, like when I think about a customer journey or prospect journey of a website, that's really what it is. It's like when they walk into your store, if you had a retail location, they walk into your store, what experience do you want them to have? What do you want them to see? What do you want them to consume? How do you want them to go about picking something or buying? In fact, I think it was a couple months ago, you put a tweet out where you're excited because for the first time in your career, someone came to your website and bought something without talking to you. How long ago was
Yes.
that? 3 months ago, two
That
months
was
ago?
2 months ago. It was awesome.
Probably got that
And
day marked on the calendar.
well, in this person in particular, he was a freight agent, and he was looking to create some level of independence, not away from his agency partnership, but he
Sure.
wanted to create that independence for him. That when someone is looking up, when he's reaching out to potential customers, and that customer, how are they going to perceive you if you're not taking your role seriously? And one way to create that level of seriousness, that level of trust, is by saying, I'm going to create a presence for myself online.
That's
I'm going
right.
to build on a platform that I own, and then I'm going to build on a platform that's rented land. So rented land being social media, your owned properties being a podcast, email, or your website. But if you want to do business with big companies, you have to have a website. It's night and day simple in my opinion. And I know that other folks have built, I think Jolly is a great example of someone who has built his business. And I don't think he has a website yet. I might be wrong on that, but that's an example of someone who has built up content that on a platform that he owns, and then also on rented land as well. But if you're a freight agent and you're looking for customers, the customers are going to Google you. They're going to try to find out if you're legit or not. So if you're moving freight, or if you're trying to establish that business relationship and you don't have a website, you're going to have a hard time establishing that trust factor that you're in it for the long haul. So I kind of see websites in two different ways. Either they're content driven or they're a static website. And I think where a lot of folks get overwhelmed, or maybe they try to add too many bells and whistles when it comes to their marketing, is when they're just going to be a static website, or they have no ambition to create content themselves. But what they'll do is they'll go to, a platform like HubSpot, which is great. I sort of harp on them a lot, but they're great for content creators. If you're not creating content on a regular basis, then HubSpot is going to be too much for you. And so that it's going to be too many bells and whistles. It's going to be too much that overwhelms you. So sometimes you just need to lay the foundation, and lay the foundation correctly the first time with your website. And then you can build up into some of these more sophisticated content marketing platforms. So it's really, two different lenses that I look at it in is how can you have just the bare minimum on your website in order to establish that trust and credibility. And then when you're ready, take it to the next level and start promoting yourself on social media, start promoting and using email as another distribution tactic, maybe using podcasting, YouTube videos, things like that, in order to drive the content and the awareness on these other channels back to that trust factor, which is your website.
Well, congratulations, first of all, on the self-sign up. That's so cool. I can't wait for that day on my website. I know it's coming. And shout out to Chris Jolly, who does have a website, thefreightcoach.com.
Cool.
So he has that. I'm sure he's going to keep revamping it, making it better and better. He does have a website. It's got some,
congratulations.
Podcasts and things like that on it. So he does have that. So talk a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to creating a website, and that, thinking through the prospect journey, because that's really what it is from a website perspective. There's also some customer journeys that can happen on a website as well. But when you think about just that prospect journey of helping them understand who you are and getting comfortable with your brand and what you offer, and potentially buying and eventually buying.
Well, I think the first thing that comes first is, who are you trying to reach? How do you differentiate yourself? I'm going to go back to the freight agent example, because that is one issue in particular where you're competing in a sea of other freight brokers. So how do you make yourself stand out? And you can offer, the basics, which is, full truckload, maybe reefer shipments, things like that, where you listing out your services on your site. So you want a little bit of information about yourself, but then the services angle, that should all be about the customer that you're trying to target. So using their terminology, using their verbiage, what kind of conversations are you having with these customers? What verbiage specifically are they using? And so from the ground level, what I would highly suggest to anyone out there, and I've mentioned this a few times, but start a lingo library Google document. It's just a regular Google document, and it's called a lingo library. And after you have sales conversations, I have it bookmarked on my computer, where if I have a call with a prospect or a current client and they're using specific verbiage, I make a mental note of that, exactly the phrase that they use. Sometimes I'll even have that document up during the call itself, so I can just type something in really quickly of the exact phrases that they're using, because those phrases are exactly what you want to use on your website, your marketing materials, and your social media messaging. Too often we tend to focus the entire website on ourselves, me, which is fine for like your About Us page, things like that. What you believe in, of course, those are important, and you want to make sure that that's sprinkled throughout the website. But from a customer lens, that's how you want to build it. If I'm a customer and I'm coming to your website, what do I want to see? I want to see, have you done this before? Who did you do it for? What are the risks involved of me working or on this project or not working with you? So you want to be able to answer all of those questions and treat it almost like that pre-sales call. So answering all of those questions as much as you can on your website first. So then that way, when that next step, that next conversion, because I sort of think of the website after you have answered those questions on your site, what's that next step that you want the user, that you want that prospect to take? Do you want them to book a meeting? Do you want them to follow you on social media? You want to have a primary conversion, which is likely book a meeting, book a demo. And then you want to think about those secondary conversions. Maybe people are distracted all the time. Maybe they come to your website because they were curious about you, and then they see you, they get distracted. So they don't book a meeting. They don't, book a demo. They don't go through the entire research process yet. But what they will do quickly is follow you on social media. So you want to think about those primary conversions and then those secondary conversions. I think that too, when you're building out your site, there's so much just content out there that is geared towards, the internet from 10 years ago. So focusing a ton on SEO, focusing a ton on your funnels and, your buyer personas and things like that. And a lot of those things are just a waste of time. As long as you're talking to your customers and talking to your prospects on a regular basis, you know who you're trying to reach. You know from off the top of your head of the person that is an ideal fit for you. And if you have that lingo library document, then you can use those phrases that your customers and prospects are already using, and you can add them to your site and build it into that site structure where you have a handful of pages that, your about us, contact us, our services, homepage, maybe a blog. But as long as you nail down those handful of pages first, and you maybe will get some conversions first, then that next step is taking it up a notch and then focusing on your marketing, maybe some advertising. There's too often, I think, that a lot of folks will spend hours, sometimes days and weeks, building out these buyer personas that are just so outdated, and people don't buy from a buyer persona because you have strong Sally who's 40 years old, who has tattoos. None of that is relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve. And so when you talk to your customers, when you talk to your prospects, you know exactly what problems that they're dealing with, and you know what job they're trying to get done. So if you are building your site from the verbiage that they're using and the job that they're trying to accomplish, then you are going to be light years ahead of the folks who are, I guess, consuming training that is, just from a methodology standpoint, a decade old. And I think that there's a rude awakening for a lot of companies that they need to come to the realization that, COVID has changed everything. They changed how we buy. More than 90% of research is done on you through social media, through your website, before they ever reach out to you. And also around that same percentage point, more than 90% of people are not in a buying cycle. So if you are using these different platforms in order to get your message out and to market yourself, then when they come to your website, if your website forms don't work, or if your website forms, or if your website itself isn't speaking to the problems that you're speaking to in your marketing, then those are it's a whole bucket of issues that I think people overcomplicate it. And as long as you get those handful of pages right on your site first, then it allows you the ability to experiment on social media, continue to refine, continue to get better. You'd be surprised at how, small copy changes on your website can have a dramatic impact. The changing of a button color can have a dramatic impact on conversions. It's all these different data science that comes later on. It's sort of like a phase 3. I like to think about establish your website first as a phase 1, and then a phase 2 is establish your social media game, and then phase 3 is just kicking it up a notch to where you can start experimenting with different copy and colors and things like that. More than likely, a majority of transportation companies will never get to that level, but a lot of SaaS companies in this space will, and they probably already are.
Well, if they come to TMSA, they have a good shot at it. But there was so much there to unpack. I could listen to you all day talk about this stuff. No, it was so good. I don't want to interrupt at all, because I'm taking it all in. I'm sure that our audience is as well. But one thing that you said, I think makes a lot of sense. And we, as founders of companies, we have slight advantage because we are talking to prospects and customers, and we're doing the marketing. But in a lot of organizations, you've got your sales team, you have your marketing team, and they don't talk to each other. And this is where a marketing team can get their gold, and that is asking their sales team, what keywords are people saying? What objections are they raising? What are the reasons that they bought from you? Because those are going to, that's where the content comes from a marketing perspective, is talking to your sales guys. And we just happen to be both of those as founders. So we get to, talk to prospects and figure that out. But I love the lingo document. That's such a great idea as well to document, because you're not going to remember these things. You're just not going to do it. So it's so good to have that. But there's just so much there, which is just absolutely incredible. We could talk for hours about this, but unfortunately we're at 30 minutes. I mean, it goes by so fast.
Oh, dang, that went quick.
I know. It goes really good when you have great content. I mean, that's just kind of the way it works, right? But I'm so thankful that you came back on this show. You were my first guest. You believed in what we were doing, so I appreciate that. Everybody's watching, Jennifer, Scott, everybody else, thank you so much for watching the show today. It was wonderful. I hope we come back again. I'm sure there's much more we can
Absolutely.
talk about. So it'll be great.
I feel
Can't
like
wait to see
we
you.
could talk for another couple hours.
I know I probably could for sure, but I can't wait to see you in June in Orlando at TMSA. And for
Likewise.
everybody who watched this, make sure that you come and hang out with us. There's going to be some incredible people there. Again, Jennifer's done a phenomenal job with this
She
organization.
really
So
has.
June 5 through 7, Orlando. Go to events.tmsatoday.org and sign up. We'll see you guys there. And make sure you come back tomorrow for episode 58 of Standing Out with my good friend Curtis Triber, 10:30 a.m. Central. You know Curtis, don't you? Do you know Curtis?
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
mean, it's a lot of the freight community is very strong on social media. So
it
even though
is.
I've never actually met him before, we're only, I mean, we're like a year into conferences. So being able to see
Right.
some of these people that you've seen online and see them in person is really wild.
I'll have to see if I can talk him into getting down to Orlando to TMSA with us. But just phenomenal guy, just really nice guy, but great entrepreneur, great leader, very visionary. Can't wait to talk to him tomorrow. And again, thanks everybody for watching. And shout out to my sponsor, TAFS, the good guys in Freight Factory. Check them out at TAFS.com. And Blythe, thanks again for being on the show. And for everybody, we'll see you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.